Good evening, everybody. It is Wednesday, May 21st at 6 p.m., and I am calling this meeting to order. It is the public information meeting for file number 25-18, Bear Lake Wind Farm Development Agreement. West Hants Regional Municipality acknowledges that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes that we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and each other. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We acknowledge the historic and ongoing racism against these communities and are committed to mending our relationship by listening, learning, and recognizing our wrongs. The West Hants Public Participation Program, established under Section 204 of the Municipal Government Act, requires a public information meeting for development agreements and proposed amendments to planning documents. This meeting is hosted by planning and development staff and provides members of the public with an opportunity to bring up any concerns and ask the applicant and planning staff questions regarding the proposal. As a reminder, this meeting is streamed live on YouTube, and audience members are not permitted to record the meeting on their personal devices. If we need to leave the building due to a fire or other emergency, exits are found to the right towards the back of the room and at the back on the left-hand side. The muster location is in the staff parking lot, and I will be the last person out and check that the washrooms are empty. At this time, I will turn the floor over to Acting Director Fougier.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, just making sure this is up here. Okay, perfect. So just an overview of what tonight will look like. So we have our introduction by the chair, which was already done, an overview of the proposal and process. So that'll be a presentation by myself, a presentation from our applicant, and then followed by questions and comments from the public. So tonight I will be presenting on the Bear Lake Wind Farm Development Agreement application. So a completed application was received on April 28th, 2025 from Bear Lake Wind Farm Limited. And as mentioned, this application is for a development agreement to permit 7 turbines within the West Hants Regional Municipality. This application for a development agreement was previously submitted under previous municipal policy, but was withdrawn. And the applicants have since resubmitted a new application with a revised development concept to be considered under new municipal planning policy. So in December 2023, the application received environmental assessment approval from the province. And another important thing to note here is that in January of this year, West Hants Municipal Planning Strategy Policy was amended with new requirements for large wind turbine developments, and this was based on new requirements from the province. So the entire project area is within the resource designation and general resource zone, which prioritizes resource uses, but also allows some rural residential and commercial uses. A development agreement is a legal contract between the municipality and the property owner to permit a use that is not permitted in the underlying zone. So once drafted, they ultimately must be approved by council and before they are registered to the property. And the resource designation and general resource zone permits large-scale wind turbine development by development agreement only. So a little bit more details about the project, which the applicant will provide a little bit more detail on. It's an 11 turbine project in total, but only 7 turbines are proposed in WHRM. Each turbine is 8 megawatt capacity and 211 meters high. And they are going to be located both on Crown properties and privately owned lots. And the additional 4 turbines will be in Chester and Halifax Regional Municipality. So as for the enabling policy, policy 4244 enables council to consider installations of large wind turbines or wind farms by development agreement. So again, this is based on updated minimum planning standards from the province. And then further, policy 1631 states our general criteria for amendments and new development agreements. In terms of process and next steps, so tonight we're at the public information meeting, which will be followed by a staff review and drafting of the draft development agreement. From there, it'll go through the regular approval process, including planning advisory committee recommendation as in council. And following that entire process, there's an appeal period before the development agreement can be signed and registered. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. Comments can be submitted via email. I'm also available via phone up until June 4th would be appreciated. I can also bring the slide up towards the end just to have my contact information up there if anybody is looking for it. So I'll pass it back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Acting Director Fougier. I am now going to turn the floor over to Mark and Rebecca for their presentation.
Thanks, Chair, Acting Director Fougier, members of the council, and obviously members of the public for coming this evening. While I bring this up, there's maybe a hand with that. Thank you. Just like to acknowledge really the West Hants Municipality for allowing us the opportunity to come back in and present on the Bear Lake wind application. We are back based on, the recommendation of council to bring this development agreement back in front of the community and provide an opportunity for us to update members of the public, councillors, as well as other interested parties on our development. And we do feel like we have, many of you are familiar with myself. I have been in a number of meetings and we have heard concerns raised by the public. We have heard concerns raised by councillors, and we're bringing back a different application. So tonight, both myself and Rebecca will walk through some of the changes that we put in place with this application, and certainly take the opportunity to answer specific questions that members of the public will have with this. We also have other members of the team present today that can also assist in addressing some of the specific questions. But before we get into it, I would like to hand over to Chief Terry Paul to say a few words on behalf of Member 2 in the Bear Lake project. Let's see. Opportunity for audio. Well, we're working out the audio. Unfortunately, Chief Terry Paul can't be here this evening. He's actually receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award in his community of Member 2 this evening, and obviously sends his regrets, which we'll acknowledge kind of in the video. And we'll speak to their perspective on the project. Should I try it again? I take the opportunity just to introduce Chief Terry Paul. It's it's been a key component of this project for Everwind has been the opportunity to partner with Member 2 on this project. So as many of you are aware, Member 2 are the majority owner of this project. So they hold 51% ownership of this project and have had that prior to Everwind being involved in the project. So prior to Everwind being involved, it was Nova Scotia Power. And it was Member 2 that actually brought Everwind into this project, and they've really been key in guiding Everwind through this project, as well as a number of other developments throughout Nova Scotia. And the partnership with Member 2, as well as other First Nation communities on our projects, has been integral, really, and has been really a key to leading the development. So I really do hope that we can share Chief Terry Paul's words with everyone this evening. If not, we'll certainly make the video available to the public, should we not be able to get it up this evening. Doing a great job back there.
The volumes on the TV,
I wonder.
just as a thought. So I don't know whether to remember.
I'm also gonna play around with the volume on here.
Okay, it was down.
Yeah, maybe we'll just go on. Jared, maybe we'll go on if there's an opportunity to come back to it at the end to play at that point. I think it would be beneficial if we could get back to it, but if not, we'll certainly make it available. Yeah. Need your help getting that back up again. And I'll take the opportunity to introduce myself again. So my name is Mark Stewart. I'm the Director of Engagement with Everwind. My role is supporting the development team on our projects throughout Nova Scotia. Obviously, Chief Terry Paul is Chief of Member 2 First Nation, and obviously sends his regrets. And here with me as well this evening is Rebecca Crump, our head of renewable energy, and she's going to walk through kind of our next slides that talk to the specifics of the project.
So I've been consulting for Everwind since mid 2023. And late last year, when she asked me to come over to lead up their renewable energy division. So I will be responsible for closing out development and all development activities, leading the projects through construction and ultimately into operations. I had been consulting for Everwind, and they've brought me on to lead. I have 19 years experience in renewable energy development and ancillary infrastructure. And I really put a focus on developing socially responsible and environmentally sustainable projects. I think that aligns with Everwind's core values quite a bit. And what you'll see here today is we've done a lot of work in the background, really talking to some community members and hearing concerns. And we're really trying to put our best foot forward to make some real changes to the project layout that hopefully will be well received tonight. So I think historically there's some new faces. So we'll just kind of go through kind of some historical information. So we submitted our received environmental assessment approval for the original project in late 2023, had submitted a development permit application. We had, and Mark can speak to kind of the engagement he led, the engagement at this time, open houses within the community, attendance at community events, and had ongoing office hours, I believe at the Little Red Schoolhouse. That some of our folks here were in regular attendance. And since that time, we've received a whole bunch of community feedback, and what we're really here to talk about today is present our revised project. It's still a wind project, but we've done our best, you know, in keeping with a wind project to reduce the footprint of the project in various ways. I'll walk you through some maps in a couple slides. We've reduced the number of wind turbines. We've kept hearing that kind of over and over through various council meetings, whether they were about specifically the Bear Lake project or with respect to wind in general in West Hants. So we've done our best at looking at a different wind turbine model. Originally, we were contemplating a 5.9 megawatt wind turbine. We have done a lot of analysis over the last 6 or 7 months. A lot of work goes into making these changes. You can't just swap out one turbine for another. There's a lot of background information. And that's really why we couldn't present this information as we were working on it sooner. We need to understand if it was viable or not. So like Carrie said in her presentation, we've increased the size, the generating capacity of the wind turbine from 5.9 megawatts to 8 megawatts, thereby reducing the number of turbines that are on the site. We've really looked at advancing some engineering design to reduce the overall infrastructure. And I like to talk to a map, so I'll kind of go into these in detail when we look at the maps. And by reducing the footprint of the project, you know, we reduced the environmental impact of the project and did some realignments to really try and reduce the footprint on Crown land specifically, which I know the community values and uses for recreation. Despite reducing the number of turbines, the overall generating capacity is the same. So we are currently, we have a grid limit of 89 megawatts that we can connect into NSPI's grid. And our current project contemplates 88 megawatts. We can work with the wind turbine manufacturer to kind of make the unit 8.1 potentially to get it back up to that 89. But right now the project sits at 88 megawatts. So essentially the same generating capacity and therefore community benefits packages out to the local communities based on the project. We have, and we'll show this in the map, have had quite a few meetings with Chalet Hamlet. And right from the beginning, they had expressed an interest for a secondary egress. They currently do not have any emergency. There's one point in and out of their community. So we have committed to a second emergency access only, secondary egress for the community of Chalet Hamlet through the wind farm. And I'll talk specifically about that on the maps. And one big thing that I wanted to bring up, because it is a substantial investment, is, and I'm a very strong believer in ADLS. So that's Aircraft Detection Lighting System. And every wind farm that I work on specifically, I try to implement and lobby for this lighting system. So what this does is it keeps the skies dark at night. That's one of the big you know, after 19 years in wind development and seeing lots of red blinking lights in the sky, I think the industry is really recognizing that this is disruptive to, you know, rural residents. I live rurally, and we value our dark skies at night. And so what this system does, and I've seen it in action, it's pretty neat to watch actually, is the wind farm will be dark, and you'll see one light come on, and then it'll go off, and another light come on. And I believe it's when an aircraft is within 3 kilometers, 3 nautical miles, then the lights will turn on until the aircraft has passed through by 3 nautical miles. So we have committed and continue to commit to kind of the dark sky commitment by utilizing this ADLS system. And so we've resubmitted our development permit application with, we think, some substantial modifications. We had to keep, for the project to be economically viable, we still require that same number of megawatts to get injected into the Nova Scotia grid. But maybe we can turn to the maps. And what I'll do is I'll use the mouse here to just so keep your eye on the mouse. And this is just, I'm going to have 3 maps, and you'll see one that are more blown up. This is just the pink is the old layout under our originally approved environmental assessment and our original development permit application. There was 15 wind turbines. The 4 southern turbines have always been located outside of West Hants, and they will continue to be located outside of West Hants. But we'd previously had 11 turbines on Crown and private land in West Hants. You'll see, if you see my cursor right now, we had a project substation located kind of in the center of the project, and that is a collector. There'll be, from each turbine, there'll be above ground kind of distribution poles, just like you see in front of your house, to bring electricity in your home. All of the above ground collection systems collect the electricity and pump it into the project substation. So originally we had planned for the project substation to be located kind of in the center of the wind farm, and along 138 kilovolt transmission line that would lead up to an NSPI existing transmission infrastructure with another large substation or switching station, as they would call it, to interconnect into the grid. This NSPI, if you're not connecting directly into a substation, requires switching stations at all to connect into their infrastructure. That's one of their policies. So I'm just going to move over to the right here, and you'll see a zoomed in copy in a moment. We have eliminated, you'll see on the right-hand side here, considerably shortened the transmission infrastructure, located the substation at the north end of the property, and eliminated the need for this additional substation at the north end of the project, and are working with NSPI to upgrade some of their mill pond substation. So our line will connect directly into the existing substation. So we don't have to build out additional infrastructure. And the transmission line, and I do want to talk about this, the transmission line is not part of our development permit application, but I wanted to present it to you so you get the full picture. I'm not just giving you a kind of a piecemeal description of the project. So why the transmission line is not part of the development permit application with West Hants is because it will be a NSPI asset, and NSPI does not have to go through the development permit application process. So we are working with NSPI, and this is not specific to Everwind. Any other power producer has this option. We work with NSPI on the interconnection to the project, and we will build the wind project and our collection substation and build the transmission line into their existing substation to NSPI specifications. And then we transferred that asset over to NSPI. So we pay for it. No, this is completely Everwind funded. Ratepayers will not have to pay for this. And we basically transfer the asset. I don't know if it's for $1 or for nothing, but then it becomes part of NSPI's infrastructure grid infrastructure. So I did think that was important, just so you saw the whole project of Bear Lake, but specifically what we're going to focus on today as a part of the development permit application is the actual wind farm. And so I don't know if people can ask questions now or we wait till the end. Okay, we'll wait till the end. So we'll go on maybe to the next slide, Mark. So is there any way to zoom in a little bit? No, okay. So what this shows, the next slide shows what we want to build. This shows the 11 turbine locations that we propose to construct. The 4 alternate locations. So we've removed this turbine on Crown land down here from the base case. This turbine over here on private land. A turbine up here on Crown, and another turbine at the north end of the project. So why I'm showing those is in wind farm construction, even though we've done geotechnical studies, we always keep alternates approved throughout the process. And we generally do that throughout development and through construction. First in development, just in case there's a problem with development, we can't permit it, or there's, major community concerns about, various issues. That leaves us flexibility to alter, remove the turbine from the layout. We leave them in through construction because we could run into constructability issues, or we could run into I know this isn't relevant, to this area, but I have a really good example that I went through on a project. It was on farmland where we started excavating for the foundation, and we ran into, great grandma's dump in, at the, she had thrown away, china, and the landowner was like, yeah, my grandmother used to, use that as a dump. And Ministry of Culture got involved and basically stopped the excavation. So because the artifacts were over 100 years old. So we leave in this case, it would be constructability. The geotechnical is a little challenging here. We know from what I've heard in talking to some of the contractors that are working on Benjamin Mills right now, there's big cobbles that make constructing the foundations challenging. So we have our intention is to build the next slide, which you'll see, which are the turbines locations. The 11 turbine locations are 7 in West Hants that we're seeking approval for, but I wanted to illustrate the 4 additional turbines that we do have permitted. And if we ever ran into a constructability issue at this point, then we would consult, we would come back. They would already be approved from the EA branch perspective, but we would seek approval to shift one of our turbines to an alternate location. And the one other item, sorry, I just want to talk about is we heard a lot, I think it was about a month and a half ago, while we were doing final adjustments on the layout. I had came to the community and met with a considerable number of landowners, recreation users on this Crown land. And there was a real concern about infrastructure and traffic on Crown land. There's some hunt camps around, a lot of ATV use here. So if you see the cursor, so this road, it's an existing road. There's a big water course crossing right here. Yeah. And then this road all the way down to here, we've eliminated from the base case layout. So you'll see, maybe we can flip to the next slide, is what we're proposing to construct. So again, we do have a site entrance I'm just trying to find the mouse. But it's not, oh, there it is, okay. So these 4 turbines, again, are outside of West Hants. We do propose a site entrance in West Hants to access these 4 turbines. We've also eliminated the road network between the north and south grouping of turbines. So this used to be, oh, do you want to go back? Sorry about that. Here, you can just go next because this is, oh, there. So this, in our last layout, was a road and above ground collection system. And we've eliminated this road, and it's folks use that as an ATV. There's an existing ATV trail about half the route. We are going to just have our MV lines in there. We'll have to maintain medium voltage collection system. So just like the power poles outside your home. So we will maintain this. So trees obviously don't grow up into the power lines, and maintain the AV trail as folks currently use it. And I've talked specifically with a few folks that would like to continue to use this. So we have to maintain this for our power line, and we'll maintain the trail network that's there. So how we chose which 4 turbines to remove from the project. So we actually got about 5 of us who know the project, who know the community, who have talked to the most landowners. Our director of environment and permitting is here and talked to us about how we could reduce the impact and the impact of each turbine. And we sat down, and I think we had kind of a little vote on, on getting everybody's opinions together. So we tried to remove the turbines that had the most visual impact, remove at least half of them that were located on Crown land, and reduce the environmental impact, because we had heard a lot about concerns over wetlands, water courses. So we tried to do our best while maintaining the highest wind sites. Obviously, we need to maintain the best turbine locations that have the highest wind, because we do need to generate electricity, and we need to generate affordable electricity from the project. So we will have a second 2 entrances off the highway into the site. The second entrance, this is an existing road, and there'll be a cluster of 4 turbines in the center of the project. And so you'll see, we've eliminated this large road that I heard many concerns about, just traffic due to the hunting in this area. Moved the project substation up to the north end, which eliminates the a good portion, and I actually have the numbers here of infrastructure from the project. And so what you'll see here is this is Armstrong Lake. This is Armstrong Lake Road, and we will improve Armstrong Lake Road. You'll see this is Armstrong Lake Road. We will improve it to the quality of our access roads, and connect Armstrong Lake Road past our substation into the project's access road network. We've sat down with members of Chalet Hamlet, and we have.
So that's Armstrong Lake West Road.
Armstrong Lake West. This road is to be used for emergency access only. And we have discussed with key members of Chalet Hamlet, and I believe you'll be there. Okay, do you want to talk about that at the end?
I
Okay,
will
sure.
leave that to the end
Sure.
where the question and comment
Sure.
period is,
Okay.
okay? But I will note it.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't speaking into the microphone. I just noticed. Um, so yes, we will discuss our conversations. So we have committed to this, and our balance of plant EPC constructor will construct this as part of the road network. But the one thing I just wanted to highlight is that it is to be used for emergency purposes only, not for, a shortcut um, over kind of, the provincial road network. Is there any other highlights, Mark, that you think are important?
I think the ones when we get to the table.
Okay. So, oh, yeah. So this is just kind of the what I've just discussed in numbers. So we've removed 4 turbines, 15 to 11 in total, 7 in West Hants. 2 have been removed from Crown land. And these are kind of the statistics based on the new layout. So we've reduced the number of new roads by over 5 kilometers, which is almost a 40% reduction in new roads over the project. 13.1 kilometer reduction in the roads that are going to require upgrades. Over half a reduction in road upgrades. And then 28% or 5 hectare reduction in impacts to wetlands, resulting in based on less infrastructure. And then 38% or 5 less water crossings that require kind of culverts and structures and roads over them. And I think the one thing that's important to note, and we had discussed in a meeting with the planner, is that our previous, or it was standard language within the development agreement, not the application, but the development agreement that the project would have with the county, is that the language was, I believe it was maintain existing stormwater management, or the project will keep the same standard. And what we've committed to is working with the municipality and the municipality's public works department and our engineers, and committed to improving stormwater management. We know it's been a big issue in this community, and we can only make a commitment to, we can't fix the entire area, but we can make improvements within our approved limits of disturbance. So you'll see that come through in our new development agreement, that we don't know what that's going to look like. We need to, our engineers and the municipality's engineers to work together. But I think it's, while we're moving dirt on site, it's, it's a great opportunity to help the local area as much as possible with stormwater management. And we did hear, considerable discussion. We watch, I watch a lot of council meetings from home, and I've heard this topic come up time and time again with respect to our project, but also with respect to, other areas in the community. And I know it's a big concern for the community in general. And so these are just kind of the specifics of the project. So the project nameplate capacity will be approximately 88 megawatts. The ownership structure you're aware of and Mark has spoken to. The 11 turbines, 5 on Crown and 6 on private. And we are utilizing, so I think it's important to note we're using an 8 megawatt turbine, but that turbine is only 4.5 meters taller than the turbine that we were proposing before. So despite it having a lot bigger generating capacity, it is only 4.5 meters taller. So the hub height would be 120 meters. The previous hub height was 125 meters, and the rotor diameter would be 182 meters. So those are 91 meter blades. They are quite large blades. It's a very large turbine, and all turbines are now that a 5.9 turbine is a small turbine these days. What we're seeing coming into Nova Scotia right now is anywhere between that 6 and 8 megawatt machine, a lot of 7 megawatt machines. So this is in line with what the industry is producing across North America right now. We do, if approved, we would like to initiate tree clearing over the winter. And then we would like to start construction as early as probably Q2 next year. We are currently just going out to tender for construction, so it'll be a competitive process with some local Nova Scotian companies that are in the process of bidding. We've just released our packages for the construction of this project, along with 2 other projects in Colchester County. And we would like to target commercial operations by the end of 2027. And I believe I'll pass it over to Mark. Do you want me to talk about decommissioning just before, and then you can take over?
Be great.
Okay. So decommissioning is always a hot topic in wind development across the country. There are requirements within our development agreement for a decommissioning security. There are requirements on our private land options for decommissioning, and also there are requirements on our Crown land for decommissioning securities. The Crown is the most stringent. So all 3 are required 5 years, no longer than 5 years after the 5th anniversary, of the commercial operations date. So if we went, say we achieved commercial operations January 1st, 2028, then no later than January 1st, 2032, we would have to hire an independent third party to do a study, and they would take all of the infrastructure and create and determine the salvage value, because there's a lot of metal and recyclables that are worth a lot of copper cabling, a lot of items that are worth considerable money, and then determine the labor and disposal costs to fully decommission the project, and then add in the salvage costs. And so I believe the Crown requires 125%, 125% bond or letter of credit. There's different financial mechanisms that we could have the option to post that security, but we would post it, and I think we would work with our private landowner, the Crown, and West Hants. So, we don't post 3 securities. We would collectively determine who would hold that bond. And that would be posted, like I said, 5 years after the date of the commercial operations. So I'll pass it over to Mark.
Thanks, Rebecca. So Rebecca spoke at length to the changes, and we thought that was the most appropriate way to initiate this presentation this evening, because it really goes to the point that we have heard the concerns of the community, and we have tried to the best of our ability to address them. While making those changes, we also wanted to maintain the core commitments that we had for this project. And, being from Nova Scotia, one of the really important matters with developing renewable energy projects in Nova Scotia is that there are benefits for Nova Scotians associated with that. And this is key to what we maintained throughout the commitments here, is that our commitments to municipalities in terms of the financial contributions that come into the municipalities are maintained based on these changes that we've put in place. And I think it is worth highlighting the mechanism by which those figures are determined. It is based on what's called the nameplate capacity of the turbines. And there has been a number of conversations to date around this. And it's really important that the commitments will be made right from the start, and they are determined for the life of the project. And the way that works is, let's say this is one of the turbines that goes onto the site. It's an 8 megawatt turbine. That's the nameplate capacity of that turbine. Irrespective of the amount of energy it generates, the contributions to the municipality will be based on that 8 megawatt nameplate, and it's guaranteed through what's called like the provincial wind turbine tax, and those rates are set annually. So we will know for the 25 years of this project what those rates will be and what that payment will be into the municipality. So we know that for the life of the project, it's 31 million annually for the project, starting off in 2026 or 2027, the first year of commercial operation. It would be around that $750,000 to the municipalities, of which about 450 would come into West Hants, and that money is without so that's paid into the municipalities without any services associated with it. And I think that's also a point that is really important to make, because effectively that money can go back into the community without any costs associated with it. So in a similar way that Rebecca mentioned, the transmission line will be handed back to Nova Scotia Power and the investment that's made into that. With the road investments, with the infrastructure on site, those are costs incurred by the project. And not the municipalities. So that those taxes go in. And that's the same with the community benefits. So we made the commitment, which is a voluntary commitment of $1,000 per megawatt. That's based on the nameplate capacity of the machine. So that's paid out irrespective of whether the turbine is generating electricity. So if that turbine's down, so it's not spinning, that is on us to ensure that that turbine is repaired and it's working for the project. The funds associated with that turbine being placed in the project area will be paid out to the community based on the nameplate, not what it's generating. And again, that will be a commitment that the project makes to the municipalities through a community benefits agreement, and it'll be legally binding agreement. How those funds are broken up, we've had a lot of conversations around that. So we've structured it in such a way that there is a vibrancy fund. So that vibrancy fund would be allocated by the CLC to initiatives within the community that the community sees value in. And again, that could be, supporting infrastructure upgrades at the Little Red Schoolhouse, or it could be putting in place, infrastructure on the project site, or it's really to be determined by the CLC. The other component of the community benefits agreement is a proximity payment. And the intention there was for those residents in the closest proximity to the site to receive a payment each year to offset their power, was a theory initially. And then it's been changed based on conversations around some people being off grid or just the complexities around that it'll be a payment to those in the closest proximity. The breakdown of that is still to be determined based on the agreement that is signed with the municipality. What we're committing to is the total amount. So $90,000 is committed to annually for the life of the project. How that's specifically broken down, we really want feedback from the CLC and the community on how that's specifically structured, and obviously to work with the municipality to come to that formal agreement. The commitment, though, is for the entire amount of the 90,000. The other points on there that I think is really important is the contributions to communities through both the construction, so the opportunities for employment and procurement through construction, And we often use the Community Liaison Committee as a way to ensure we maximize the benefits for communities through all the phases of development. So we've just recently stood up the Community Liaison Committee for the Bear Lake Wind Project to continue to exchange information and provide updates on where we're at through the development phase. Once we move into construction phase, it will be working with the CLC to determine ways to maximize the benefits for the community through employment, through procurement, and then through operation. It will be through the allocation of the community vibrancy funds, as well as ensuring the continued operation and maintenance of the site through ongoing local employment. So those jobs that you see up there will be jobs where people turn up to the site every day, 365 days of the year, to work on site. And collectively through Nova Scotia, we see the renewable energy environment as providing significant employment opportunities for Nova Scotians at really competitive rates. And I think that's something that's also worth highlighting through this, is that they will be well-paying local jobs that in operation last for the entire period of the project, which we see as obviously significant for the communities. And the final one there is the Community Liaison Committee, which we're establishing for all of our projects as the key kind of mechanism in the community to share information, both from the perspective of the proponent developing the site as Bear Lake to provide updates to key community members, but also from the community to provide updates to the project on concerns, on areas of focus, on ways to maximize the benefits. And we just initiated the CLC and we'll continue to grow that over the life of the project. Oh, sorry. One of the things, thanks, Andrew, for mentioning that we feel, again, has been a really key component of the development of our projects is the implementation of scholarships directly in our communities. And the way that we see those working is that people, not just young people, will be able to apply for scholarships in the area of renewable energy. And those will be allocated out starting in 2026 to ensure that we have local people that are trained up to work on the sites. And we've been partnering with Nova Scotia Community College to establish the first wind technician program in Nova Scotia, which will come online in September 26. And then that'll follow. We'll also have solar energy technician courses developed through Nova Scotia Community College as well. And those scholarships can go both kind of in, the trades format, or they can go in through universities as well. So that.
People are on that committee, and where are they? Are they residents of Vaughan or other Vaughan?
So we keep the comment and question period after their presentation, but I will log your question so that it can be answered following. I understand. Thank you.
So this slide just gets into a bit more detail on the types of opportunities that are available through the development of wind sites in particular. Yeah.
So we will be utilizing an EPC contractor for construction. So Everwind Bear Lake Limited Member 2 will not be hiring contractors directly. We have put considerable conditions in the packages that the contractors will have to abide by, including what's in our development agreement. And that includes having a job fair, so we can utilize as much local talent, specifically in the trades, as possible during construction. And so this just lists out some of the work that will be undertaken by that balance of plant contractor. And there will be opportunities. They have obviously their own staff, but just the size of these projects, they will be doing a considerable amount of hiring locally. And then during operations, just speaking to the point of getting qualified wind technicians in province. I've worked across Canada in wind development, and a lot of the wind technicians that I've met across Canada are from Nova Scotia or from Newfoundland, and they have left their home provinces to work. We're seeing some of them wanting to come back. We get phone calls. I get phone calls specifically from folks that I've worked with in other parts of of Canada. But what this scholarship program will do, and the startup of NSCC's wind turbine technician program, is there's various jobs on site during operations. There's administrative functions, full-time administrative functions. There are both the OEM, so the wind turbine original equipment manufacturer, that's what we say to the turbine supplier, OEM. On this site, they will likely have 4 full-time staff for the 11 turbine site. And they need to be trained wind turbine technicians. And then Bear Lake Wind would have additional balance of plant technicians. And usually having an electrical background, electricians, that type of background, because there's lots of electrical cables and such. And it's really, in addition to the full-time jobs, it's really the local spin-off. So the snow removal, the grass maintenance, the tree clearing, fencing, signage. So those are items that the project will procure directly. And we've already started creating lists through we've had not a job fair, so to speak, but open houses in each of the communities, including this one on just to generate lists of names so that when we're ready, about halfway through construction, we'll start going out to local vendors because we want to procure as much locally as possible. So there's a considerable spin-off opportunity. And during construction, I think West Hants has seen the spin-off opportunities for local restaurants, for hotels, motels, having an influx of folks, during the construction process, spurs the economy quite a bit. I'll pass it back to you, Mark.
So one of our last points to make before opening up to questions is just coming back to the criteria for which the project is being assessed. We have, as stated up there, have been working through this process with the municipality really since we achieved the environmental assessment in 2023. We recognize that there was a number of processes occurring at the same time, and wanted to ensure that we were able to continue to develop this project in line with where the municipality was going. And for that reason, we're back here tonight. Our first criteria there is that we have met the environmental assessment process, which occurred in 2023. Through that, there's really clear provincial standards in terms of property setbacks, as well as noise and shadow flicker, of which we now meet and or exceed those benchmarks provincially. We working kind of jointly with the municipality as well as the province to ensure that there is safe roadway access and measures in place through development as well as through construction and operation. And then we've committed to being here and working, kind of sitting at the table and working with the municipality to ensure that we're able to meet any other matters that are addressed kind of in that municipal development application. And in summary, we really want to state that we have heard your concerns and that we are wanting to work in collaboration with the municipality and with the community to develop this project. We have reduced the number of turbines in West Hants. We've reduced the roads and related infrastructure associated with that. and in doing so, reduced the environmental impacts of which we've heard that from the community. We are maintaining the commitments that we've made in terms of community benefit funds, while reducing kind of the overall project footprint. We're going beyond what's required from a regulatory perspective to ensure that we are meeting kind of safety as well as reducing the impacts. And then finally, we're committed to ongoing communication and transparency. And we see that kind of at multiple levels. We commit to working with the municipality to get this right for both parties, and working with the community through the CLC and other measures to ensure that we're getting information out while maximizing the benefits to the area. And then finally, that we feel like this project brings significant economic benefits to the municipality as well as the broad community here in West Hants. So on that note, that kind of concludes our formal presentation, but we're certainly open to questions.
Thank you both for your presentation this evening. So this does bring us to the question and comment period. I will just direct the 2 questions that were posed throughout your presentation if you would like to provide responses to those prior to bringing up additional questions if you're comfortable with that. So the first one was about the hamlet, discussions with the hamlet.
I'll take that one. So we have had a number of conversations. Well, really, probably over the last 2 years, there's been conversations with members of Chalet Hamlet in relation. Well, we have met officially with the Chalet Hamlet board in relation to the project and provided updates there. And we do have members of the Chalet Hamlet on our CLC. And one of the key, well, I guess there were 2 primary messages that we heard loud and clear from Chalet Hamlet residents. One is the importance of a secondary access and egress road, which is something that we've committed to ensuring that is in place to promote safety within the community broadly. And then the second point is the significant commitment that the Chalet Hamlet residents make to roads and infrastructure. And one of the other pieces that we're working on in collaboration with the Hamlet are ways to reduce costs for road maintenance and upgrades through commitments with contractors that we have on site, both for road maintenance as well as snow removal and upgrades. The second point on the CLC, and I should start by just providing
Mention that you're going back to the Hamlet.
Oh, and we are, in addition to the conversations that we've had with residents and with members, we are presenting to the Chalet Hamlet community this Sunday at the Fire Hall, an update on the project, and again, an opportunity for residents to provide feedback. And that has been scheduled now for a number of weeks. Correct, this Sunday coming. Yep. With the Community Liaison Committee, the committees are established. Well, we've been establishing these committees within communities as a way of promoting communication and feedback. Critical to the CLCs is that they are structured in such a way that aims to maximize the benefits for the community through the development of a project. So there are many ways that people, groups, associations, members of the community can oppose projects. The CLC is not one of those spaces for that to occur. The CLC is really a space for interested members of the community to work in collaboration with the proponent to achieve the best possible outcomes from the project. So with the formation of the CLC for Bear Lake, which I mentioned will continue to evolve over time. We have solicited membership through the local paper. We have requested participation from representatives of West Hants Regional Municipality, of which a motion did pass through the municipality to have local representation on the CLC. And then we've had conversations with a spectrum of individuals in the community around the project, from probably the closest resident to the site being involved, as well as local trail user associations, as well as residents. So the intention with all CLCs is to get a broad spectrum or representation of people on that committee. And currently, the CLC for West Hants is made up of 10 members, and there is opportunity to continue to grow that over time.
How many live in Vaughan or Upper Vaughan?
So currently, I would say that 2 representatives live in Vaughns or Upper Vaughns. Not necessarily. There'll be other members of other communities that live in proximity to the site that are also included in the CLC. So if you think about the circumference of the site, we have selected, like just geographically, members from around the site.
Buildings, windmills being 7 in the West Hants, which is in the lower Vaughan area.
Yep.
This would be someone in Chester,
In HRM, correct.
Could we just get you to use the mic simply because there are people watching online and unfortunately they can't hear when you're asking from the crowd? If you don't mind just coming up and turning the mic on, please. Just have to press it.
So you're saying there's going to be 7 in the West Hants, right? And 4 in the HRM area of the windmills. That's my understanding. Out of West Hants, what communities are part of the CLC? So like we have Upper Vaughan, we have Lower Vaughan, we have New Ross area, Westminster. Like what, the 10 people from the CLC, are so many from HRM? Are so many part of the council, which in West Hants, some in HRM, some within Vaughan community? Do you know that answer to who would be in what area?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And like I said, we're continuing to grow the CLC. So we had our first meeting last week, and it will continue to, like, the intention with the CLC is that it's an ongoing committee that supports the project for the life of the project. Obviously, the structure is different through different phases. So through development, it's really about an exchange of information. Through construction, we actually meet more frequently based on the changing pace of the site. And then through operations, we'd probably scale back the level of frequency because the focus is really on allocation of vibrancy funds. Again, exchanging information, but the nature of the content changes over that course of the time. So in relation to specific members that are involved in the community, so I'd say that we have probably 2 members from Vaughan's Upper Vaughns. We would have just offhand 3 members from like the Chalet Hamlet side, and then we would have probably 2 other members from West Hants more broadly in that, as well as representatives from Bear Lake Wind, from the ownership structure, as well as the development team.
Okay, so from my perspective, what I was trying to figure out, probably other people too, is if the windmill is going to be, I'm probably one of the people that's going to be one of the proximity, right? So how is this CLC going to affect, like, are we the people within the area are we going to be represented?
Yeah, I think I'm
Equally
getting
is
your
what I'm
question.
trying to
I would
say.
say that the intention with the CLC is to proportionally represent the people in the closest proximity to the site.
Okay.
So currently we have no members from HRM on it, nor from Chester, just based on there's not a large population base in either of those municipalities that are very close to the site. So our focus has been on selecting members that are in the closest proximity. And it was actually brought up by one of the members of the CLC in the last meeting that it would be beneficial to have additional representation from the Vaughans and Upper Vaughans in terms of the exact language that was used. Like a generational family, and that's something that we certainly took on board and asked the member to see if there was anyone that they knew that they could provide as a recommendation for that. So we're open for additional memberships.
Are you able to name the members?
Well, that was one of the things that we actually talked about in our last meeting, is that we haven't formally got approval from all the members because they weren't all in attendance to say this is who is on it. But it's certainly something that certainly something that we will do, and it's something that we've done with other projects. But we do want to get people's consent to do that before that occurs.
Okay, because
Yep.
it would be,
It's critical because you want to know as a resident who you can talk to, because the intention with the
no
CLC,
idea. So
Yeah.
for, you know how that looks, right?
And we
It's not
haven't-
just me, it's,
yeah, we
Thank you,
haven't
Blake.
established the terms of reference for the group because we only had our first meeting last week and we didn't have everyone in attendance. And so the intention is that the community knows who's on the committee and it's publicized so that because like one of the real values with the CLC is that community members feel more comfortable going to speak to other community members about the project. And then at the CLC, there's a roundtable forum where we discuss any matters that came up in the community and potential solutions. And the intention with the CLC is that the focus is on collaboration and a solution focused approach to developing the wind site. Because again, it goes back to Rebecca's kind of comment right at the start. It's not at this point of the CLC group anyway, it's not a question of is there a wind farm or not a wind farm, but it's if there is a wind farm being developed, how can we make it the best wind farm for our community?
Mhm.
And that's the intention with the
I
CLC.
do have another question.
Great.
Sorry. I
No,
don't
no,
wanna-
no.
I don't
Go
want
ahead.
to take the whole room here. So I'm on Armstrong Lake West. The egress road, is it going to be off of Armstrong Lake West? Because that's what it looked like on the map.
Correct.
Hard to see, like,
Yeah,
Unless,
and we
like,
could
you
maybe
could
bring that
zoom
map
in.
back up if that's possible. Because the intention is where we'll take over maintenance of the road is where the road maintenance currently ends with Chalet Hamlets. So at the junction. What's
Yeah.
that?
It'd be up past my place and I'm not in the hamlet.
no, that's what
Okay, yeah.
that's what was confusing me.
Yeah,
I'm going to step back. If you can clarify that. Thank you.
And I will just, while they're bringing up, just to add to their point about the CLC. So by motion of council, I have been appointed to the CLC as the member of council.
Which map was
go
it?
to the next one.
That one?
One
Yeah.
more actually.
I don't know if you can see.
So currently, from my understanding, is the road is maintained up to this point right here. So what we're committing to doing is maintaining a road down here that will be a site road. I can't. No, we were just talking about that. I can't
Will
zoom.
it be available for download, will it not, on
It
the
will.
municipal website?
Or we can make it available, these maps available. Yeah.
And then you can zoom in.
Yeah. And the intention, well, there's an existing road that goes up, no, the existing road that turns up. Yeah. So you'll know kind of where the logging road goes up. So that the intention there is to obviously improve that road. Not so that components can be delivered, because that's not the intention that components will be coming in through there, but it's to improve it to such a point that it's at a standard that it would be considered a site road where two-wheel drive vehicles can drive through there. And the egress route would be then through the wind site coming down here, and then out onto the 14 right here. And so how that is structured is still to be determined in terms of if there any infrastructure on it. It was certainly a topic that came up at our CLC last time, and I know it's been one that came up in council before around that road being gated or not. Mhm.
My place, I lose all my drives.
Yeah, and
So,
our intention is not that this is a through road,
Yeah.
because it will be a site road, and
emergency.
it's emergencies. And so one of the points that we want to make really clear is that it will only be used in emergencies, and certainly so that's what we want to make available. So we don't want to have it so there's obstructions in the event of an emergency, but there will need to be considerations put in place if traffic does increase, that it is a throughway to get, for example, to Chester. So if people want to utilize that road to get to Chester quicker or through there, then that will certainly be something that will need to be managed.
I'll just, the site will be, like people will be working there full time at the operations. Yeah, no, but I'm just saying that, you know, we'll have to work towards some type of policy that if people start using it as a thoroughfare, that's put, you know, then we gate it. You know, it's emergency access only. And we've had quite a few discussions on, you know, the gating, not gating issue. And we can't gate it if it's an emergency egress. If there's an emergency, you know, somebody has a key, where's that person? They're gone for the weekend. So we cannot gate it and have it as an emergency access. But this site, there will be people working on it day and night, and it will be enforced. I think that's the win-win that, you know, that all we can come up with is we understand local folks do not want more traffic. I live rurally, I understand. But we also see the need and, you know, the requirement for a secondary egress for emergency purposes.
Just one last point on that road. One of a good example that came up in the CLC was looking at options to put in place like a gate that they're using on the Mersey River, for example, where you know, it is there to deter people from going through, but if it's an emergency, you can go through it. And that's not to say that's what we're going to do, but that was a suggestion that was brought up by a member of the public or a member of the CLC that we're like, okay, that's a good option to look at if there is a need to do that.
Can I just get you to come up and state your name and then ask your question into the microphone, just so that everybody can hear? Okay, we'll hold that. Do you mind coming up as well? Thank you.
My name is Brenda Kenty. So my question is, the existing Armstrong Lake West Road, is that going to be upgraded before the new access road that shoots off of it? So there's East Armstrong Lake Road when you first come in. And if you take the quick right, it's an old logging road that connects to Armstrong Lake West. Is Armstrong Lake West Road going to be upgraded where the new access point will be and before?
I know what she's getting at. There's about 2 kilometers of the road that's not serviced right now. It's been destroyed from logging.
Yeah.
Not been reclaimed. So everything comes in now, goes up the East Road, up Forest Heights, and then cuts back down the West Road. So there's a portion that we're wondering is going to be redeveloped as a main access point coming through.
So at one point, we were told that road was going to be upgraded.
Okay, I'm just trying to think.
Okay, sorry.
I've driven up there, right? So I'm just trying to
So if you're
think
driving,
where.
if you're on Armstrong Lake East, and then you make a quick right, the first road off, second right?
It's where the culverts and spot.
Yes, sorry. If you go turn right there, is that going to be upgraded? Going, like there's all houses there.
So here, where are we talking?
Yeah,
So
thanks,
it's
Andrew.
Coming from the Ham, it's your first right. So
Hang
it's
on.
Wagner right.
Hang on, I don't know where you are. Let's, stop. Zoom out. Okay.
It's your very first rate.
Doug, if you look up here
Okay,
on this,
yeah,
this map, it's
yeah.
kind of right in here.
I can't see it on there. I'm sorry. It's just too
Okay,
hard
so
to-
just
Yeah.
what we're talking about coming in from the Hamlet, this
Yeah,
road.
correct. So looking up here.
I mean, it shows all the houses.
Pardon?
It has been GPS by the
Yeah,
county.
yeah, no, we're looking at it right now.
So it would
And
be here, Armstrong, it's the actual Armstrong Lake West
Yeah.
Road.
And it's kind of, you can see it was included as part of the project here.
yeah. Okay, so we've removed it.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Can I take it away?
I would love that.
Yeah.
Because that road is atrocious. You could upgrade that. That would be phenomenal.
Let
Especially if the
me
access
take it
goes
away. And I'm not going to have an answer immediately for you. I told, like, last night we released our construction packages.
Mhm.
So they have a couple months to price. I'd like to introduce that concept.
Okay.
And there's some pretty big civil companies that, are bidding on these packages that you probably know their names. And yeah, we'll see what we can do there.
Okay. Thank you.
Can someone make a note? Okay.
Thanks, Brenda.
My name is Nancy Durnford. I live on Armstrong Lake West Road, but not in the hamlet.
Okay.
Okay. I can't tell from your map,
Mhm.
what turbines have you eliminated?
Okay.
I have the original
Yep.
map, but I'd like to know what's gonna be gone, what
Absolutely.
numbers are gonna be gone.
I can tell you that. T8 in the middle of the project.
T8.
Yeah.
Okay.
T4. Yeah, 4 is right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it 11 and 15 at the north end of the project? 11 and 15.
So
Yeah, so
Are those
on this
the
map
only
here, you
ones?
can see, so this would be the closest one to Armstrong Lake West Road and kind of the western portion of the site. 8 is down here on the crown block in the southern section of the crown block. 11 is up here on the crown block. And then 15 is the northernmost turbine. And then, so in addition to that, just going to the next slide here, then the plan is also to remove, as Rebecca said, the road that runs through the crown block in the kind of, let's just say the northwest corner of the site.
And that road removal was kind of a last minute change. I haven't put it through full engineering yet, so that's why we're keeping it as an alternate. But when I was in town, like I said, a month or two ago and sat down, had quite a few meetings, there was a lot of concern over that road with respect to just even just project traffic on it. So, and there's a really big water course there that,
there's quite a few.
our director of
them there.
environmental
Yeah.
of environment and permitting had some words on that one as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it was a good removal.
The not transfer station, the substation, thank you.
Yep.
Where is that gonna go exactly?
So it would go right in between T9 and T10. So the egress
Yeah.
would go right by the substation, and we'd also have the operations and maintenance building right there.
So is your power lines still gonna follow Armstrong Lake West Road?
Do you want to go back to
Because originally it was
back
supposed to
the
follow along,
transmission? So there's the transmission infrastructure,
which is the yellow line? Is that the yellow?
the yellow.
Correct. Yeah. So it doesn't go directly along the road down here. It cuts
Through the
kind of
woods?
cross country. Yeah.
Yeah.
Through there and then rejoins in,
Then
I
it
guess,
follows the
proximity
road.
to the road down at this end. Yeah. The
Okay,
northern
so
end.
if I'm not mistaken, that power line is gonna go down what we refer to as the shortcut, which is the road that she was asking about, that section of Armstrong Way West, that when Wagner's logged there, they didn't remediate after they were done. And they left it in a terrible condition. And it's just gotten progressively worse. So if I'm not mistaken, your power line is gonna follow along that shortcut.
Yeah, set back from the road, but
Yes,
in that
but-
area.
Just in general
Yeah.
area, okay.
So kind of in through here. And this is a road that
Yeah.
people have been referring to.
Referring to, yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah. Oh, so it's not, so it's gonna actually be
It'll-
closer to the hamlet.
In
Gonna cut
in
through.
between the
In
two
between.
roads.
Okay.
And this is a 138 kV line, so it's not a mega transmission line. It'll be on a wood pole.
Just one pole?
Yes, a 138 kV line will
Okay.
be, it's not like a 230 kV line. You see the two poles. It'll be a single pole. I believe our current design is single pole wood structure.
I have. two
So it's not a
questions.
mega
Yeah.
big steel structure.
But
Just-
it's the double poles with the X.
No,
No.
no, it's one single pole. So it's like
Okay.
what you see outside your house on the distribution, but
don't
just a
have that.
little bit
Yeah.
bigger.
And
don't have power.
just to
Good
talk
view.
to kind of the road, I guess, in the closest proximity to your house. Like the intention early on was to come all the way down Armstrong Lake
Right.
West Road and have the substation down here.
Yeah.
So in this new design, we have removed all that section of road, including like we previously had turbine components coming into the site, the whole site through here. Again, we've removed the connectivity of this road down here as well. So we've removed this whole road coming down through Armstrong Lake West, as well as the connection road down to the 4 turbines.
So the height of these new turbines, it's 320 meters with the fins.
211
200.
meters.
So what's that in feet? I'm sorry, I'm.
That's
old
okay.
school.
Right. So that's the tip when the
Right.
blade is right up.
Yeah.
So 211 in 692,
So that's
690.
100 feet higher than what the original ones that were going to be, because they were 550. That was what the original development was for.
So, when NSPI was,
No.
no, so they were
Your first
always,
development.
they were always a Nordex 5.9 unit in our original application. And the Nordex 5.9 had 125, you do the math for me, but the 125 meter hub height and then a 163 rotor diameter.
So what's the flicker like on these higher turbines? Because I am in a flicker zone
Mhm.
where I am.
So we have an updated shadow flicker study, and we're completely compliant. It's the provincial, Nova Scotia is one of the only jurisdictions in Canada that actually has a law and you have to abide by it. So it's good. There's a standard and we can look, we can talk offline and we can find your name and your house and
I
have
have
that.
pictures of what the original was going to look like
Okay. Okay.
that was generated by you
Yeah.
guys.
Yep.
So
So we have an updated Flickr study report. And so I believe and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but the provincial requirement is no more than 30 minutes per day and or 30 hours per year. But that the studies are done assuming there's no trees and you live in a greenhouse. Is that correct? Yes. So they're very, very conservative. But if you'd like, you can give us a call. We can I'll provide you my email. You can email Mark and we can walk you through kind of your home and even the noise and or shadow flicker.
you made me forget what
Oh,
my
sorry.
other question was. Sorry. One of the concerns that I have, because that hill is just a huge rock, Benjamin Mills, as they've been blasting, I live on Little Armstrong Lake,
Mhm.
which is, you know where I live.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
right there is where I live.
Mhm.
I can feel that blasting.
From Benjamin Mills.
Yes. So my concern, my house is not on a foundation, it's on posts.
Okay.
My concern is when you start blasting up there, is my house going to end up in the lake?
That's a very valid concern.
Mm-hmm. Because I
think-
lived
yeah.
in Halifax for many years,
Yeah.
and when they blasted for new subdivisions, bedrock, you felt it everywhere. So what's going to happen? I'm close. I'm really close.
Do you know what I would do is I would want one of our construction professionals to come out and visit your home and talk with you, and we can have this conversation and see if there is any risk, what the risk is.
Well, I'm
and-
moving my house.
Well, no, I understood.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
heard me? We have a nice driveway now, but
No, but I would like to, I lead the renewables team and I'll lead the construction of it, but we have construction professionals that, are more, could answer this question much better than I could. And
send them down.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
Do we have our contact information?
My
Yeah.
house a couple times,
Okay.
so yes.
Well, you're talking to the
Yeah.
right person.
Yeah, well, that's a concern because
Yeah.
when they started blasting over there, we felt it at our house.
Yeah.
Nancy, that would actually impact anybody that's on that construction line. That is
Absolutely.
not foundation.
Yeah.
So that would be a definite good thing for the CLC.
Yeah.
or-
Absolutely.
And there's a number of places.
Impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. No, thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Nancy.
you.
We will be in touch and, yeah.
Is there anybody else who would like to approach for comment or question? That's- I'll just ask you to please state your name and then speak into the microphone, please.
Can you hear me? My name's Colin Hines. I don't live in Vaughan's. I have property in Vaughan's. One thing that concerned me was the issue of the EA for this project covered the whole project, the transmission line, which goes across my land. I'm just curious, is that now outside of this whole process now, or?
Goes over. Yeah, it's still there. Yeah, Mr. Hines. Yeah.
So that's still, but it's not part of the development agreement. Is that what you're saying? That the council's development agreement won't cover any requirements for that transmission line?
I'm going to refer that question to Acting Director Fougier.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Transmission lines will not be part of the development agreement. It will only be for the actual wind turbines in the updated properties that were identified on the map. So it'll only focus on that. Transmission lines will be of provincial jurisdiction.
Okay, so the requirements of the EA will still be covered off by.
Yes, absolutely.
That brings up another part. When you're looking at and this is sort of aimed at the development people. I know there's been a lot of concerns in the West Hants area and particularly in Vaughan's about the Benjamin Mills project and the blasting and erosion and sedimentation and those sorts of things. I'm just curious, and I know there's an EA for this project. I have a copy here and it has a whole lot of things that you have to do, but I'm just curious, does the development department have the expertise, the personnel, as when they give this development agreement to these people, that somebody's going to have to monitor what's going on up there? And I know they're going to be saying, well, the EA Provincial Environment Department has to manage that, but I'm curious does the development group do they do post-construction during construction monitoring of these projects, or is that all pushed back to Nova Scotia Environment?
Through you, Chair, that would be through the provincial Nova Scotia Environment.
Okay, so I guess my next question is the municipality gives a development agreement. Is that they just wash their hands and say, go ahead, fill your boots? Are there restrictions, like requirements in that development agreement? Says this is what you have to do as an ongoing project?
So through the development agreement and through drafting the development agreement, there is the requirement that other jurisdictions like the province, that all of their requirements are met. So it's not So the environmental aspects of the project is something that the province has jurisdiction over. So as long as we see an approved EA, we can move forward with the development agreement.
Just add some color just from the
From the construction perspective. So the project hires an EPC contractor who generally will have an environmental supervisor. So, and they will be contractually bound. They have all the terms and conditions and of our environmental assessment. And they have all of the, we're just finalizing, drafting them, all the construction environmental commitments. And so the owner requires that contractually that the contractor follows those. And then my team, we will have in our construction side, we will have our own supervisor, environmental site supervisor, who basically just oversees the contractor and their environmental site supervisor to ensure that everything, because we don't want to not be in compliance. You know, we have committed to these and, you know, Jeff can speak, you know, if on how the province ensures compliance, but we ensure compliance through contractual commitments and then site oversight.
One of the slides you had up there, it mentioned that all the EA requirements had been met. Have all the studies been complete, like the bat surveys, the moose surveys, the bird surveys, are all those things, they're all done?
I'm just going to call on, this is Jeff Bonazza, our Director of Environment and Permitting.
There. So yeah, we're working, is it still on?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're working to meet all the terms and conditions of the approval, but all of the baseline monitoring, so the 2 years of birds and bat studies, the moose surveys, the turtle surveys have all been completed. We completed additional work based on the layout changes to support that. And we're committed to meeting all the pre-construction plans before construction. So there are several plans, the ones you were alluding to, erosion sediment control, surface water management, that are all required before clearing activities commence. Those were submitted with the original layout and we're required to amend those based on the layout changes.
I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you. This chair's a lot nicer.
You can come on back up to the mic
State my name again.
if you don't mind.
Brenda Kenty. I've heard you mention about having oversight and having people there on board that have expertise. So my understanding is the provincial government, once the EA is approved through the municipality, provincially on that side of it, is there somebody on the ground with expert, an engineer, geophysical, geologist?
You mean from
engineer.
the province, like
Right.
provincial oversight? So
Right.
we'll get, we'll get Jeff to answer.
To actually monitor the project, what's going on at the time? Do you field information back into them?
Yeah, so we have annual monitoring reports that we would need to submit, and Nova Scotia Environment and Climate Change, they have a compliance and enforcement division. So I don't know what their cadence of their monitoring would be, but they could come at any point and conduct an inspection.
Okay.
Or a lot of the time it could be complaint driven. So if there was worst case, let's say like sedimentation in the water course, you could call them and they would come out to inspect. And that's why, as Rebecca had alluded to, we would have environmental monitors on the construction side and on the owner's side, just to ensure compliance with all of our management and monitoring plans.
Okay. So the reason why I'm asking that, I used to work for the province and I used to work for the oil and gas section. And we always had people go out on a site, do a site visit, and to monitor and make sure that the people that were constructing the project were doing it according to the regulations. That's where I'm getting.
Yeah. So we would have all those monitors,
Okay.
but then there's the potential for an inspector with the province to come in
Okay.
and check.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just ask further to that.
Yeah, you can. I just get you to restate your name for me, please.
Nancy Durnford, just to reiterate on that though, are you testing the waterways now before construction starts?
No, so there was no monitoring done for water quality in the water courses as part of like the baseline requirements for the environmental assessment.
Mhm.
There would be requirements, kind of back to your original questions about blasting, there would be requirements to monitor wells prior to blasting if there's blasting within 800 meters of a well. So there's that, and then we would have commitments. And there are conditions in the EA that if there was a change to your well yield or well quality, water quality, we would have to supply a new water source or re-drill your well.
Okay,
That's, I know that wasn't exactly your question,
No,
but
but-
as it relates to the water courses themselves, we, as part of our surface water management plan and our erosion sediment control plan, there's like monitoring schedule in there. And there are provincial guidances for it's total suspended solids, TSS, which is what the sediment increases in water courses, and you have to maintain compliance with those thresholds. So there would be some sampling required just to ensure compliance during
I
construction.
guess that's why I'm asking if you're gonna test some of those waterways before you start, so that you know
Yeah.
what's
And-
there. And that hill has a lot of underground
Yeah.
waterways that you don't see on the surface.
Right.
But we see them down at the lake.
Yeah, and so for water quality measuring in water courses, you can get background samples, which is equivalent to baseline. You'd essentially go upstream of the
Mhm.
road crossing, let's just say,
Mhm.
and anything upstream of that would not be disturbed from our activity. So you
Right.
could sample there, see what the total suspended solids are, and then sample downstream as a comparison.
My question to the county is, my lake is gonna be affected by this. I can't see it not happening. Are you willing to test the lake before it starts?
So
Nobody wants to
no,
answer
so
that.
I'll be honest. I think that would have to come as like a decision of council, and I am not a representative of the council as a whole.
No, I understand that.
So I think that you could put your request in writing to council, and it would be viewed as correspondence, and then a discussion could be had. I don't think that past precedent would suggest that we sample waterways prior to, because typically when it comes to environment, that is the jurisdiction of the province. So we don't have a locus of control over what occurs there. But certainly if it's a concern to yourself, you can write correspondence to council and a larger discussion can be had. I just don't personally have the answer for you at this time.
All right,
I,
thank you.
I was just talking to Mark here, and we're going to do in well.
We don't have a
No,
well.
no, no, but just we can test the water
Mhm.
in Lil Armstrong
Yeah.
if you'd like. What I was going to say, I was just talking to, just to see what the scope would be and the timing and whatnot. But while we're sampling wells within 800 meters, I believe,
Yeah, for blasting.
for blasting, and we can sample Lil Armstrong Lake at the same time.
Because that turbine 15.
Yeah.
You remove that because of major waterway, which does feed into the river that goes to Little Armstrong.
Well, I didn't remove it for specifically.
One of
Well,
the
the
conditions.
road was the water crossing, right? That road the long
Yeah.
kind of jagged road is just
Yeah.
eliminating a big water crossing is,
Yeah,
is good
but there's a lot
Yeah,
along that
along
stretch.
there.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we could, we'll have to give you scope and timing and whatnot, but we've made a note of it
Okay.
and yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. What do you want sampled?
Okay, so turbine T15,
T15, yeah.
how far is that from 449 Armstrong Lake West Road?
So 15's been removed from the layout.
Oh, altogether?
Yeah.
So
So it's been moved into an alternate position that we would only utilize if absolutely necessary if we ran into a problem with one of the others during construction.
new question. What's the closest turbine, the new layout to 449 Armstrong Lake West?
Can we follow up?
Sure.
Well, tomorrow we can, we have. Do we have your contact
I
information?
think Andrew does.
Andrew? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. So they'll follow up with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
privately.
No problem.
Is there anybody else who would like to comment or who have questions?
Good evening.
I'll just get you to state
My
your
name
name.
is Seamus Merritt. I live in Upper Vaughan. I won't take too much time because I know there's people willing to speak. I'll start off with the ADSL, ADLS, I guess. You said you're committed to it. Is that a guarantee or a commitment?
Guarantee.
Guarantee. So
Yeah.
it will be in the development agreement that this ADLS system is part of the project.
We can add that to the development agreement. Do you want to? Andrew's making all the notes.
Right.
We need, yeah, as long as we
Yeah.
can get Transport Canada approval, then.
It's guaranteed. It's in the development agreement. There's no, oh, it costs too much money. We can't do it anymore.
Yep.
Okay. Second question. The development agreement says 7 windmills in Hants West and 4 elsewhere, right? What's the process of adding new windmills should they decide to add more windmills at a future date? Can the development agreement is hard and fast, or can they just ask for a permit and add additional windmills?
Through you, Chair. So the development agreement is still in draft form, so we're still working through it. Typically, what we write into development agreements in these types of cases is that an addition of an extra turbine or a major change in the development concept would require a development agreement amendment. So it would basically run it through the entire process again. So it's a new application for an amendment that would have a public consultation process and approval ultimately by council.
I can add just a little bit of color from our perspective so our interconnection limit is 89 megawatts,
right.
but we can't go over 89 megawatts at all.
For now.
We would have to start, a 2.5 year, 3 year process with NSPI. And this area is pretty congested. They would have to need.
That's why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
This area is
absolutely.
pretty
No,
congested.
the line is congested.
So is the area. So is the area.
So from another perspective is that I think we've made a broad commitment that, this is our wind farm for Bear Lake, and we have absolutely no intention of adding additional turbines. We're sizing the substation for these 11 turbines only. And then we would have to go through the entire environmental assessment approval process on top of that.
So since you brought that up, I just go back. So all the conditions of the EA have been met. You're confirming that? Every condition that was set out by the province has been met at this time. That's what you just said earlier, as I understood.
No, I said we were working to address the conditions. There are some conditions that, like the decommissioning plan as part of the EA isn't required until 2 years prior to decommissioning, so we haven't met that. So we're working to fulfill the conditions, and we will have to have all of the conditions completed, all of the pre-commencement conditions completed prior to commencement. So the way that the EA approval is written is there are certain things that are required for different periods. So pre-commencement is kind of the first batch of approvals that we'll need, and then prior to operations. So when the blades start spinning, there's like another batch.
What I thought I heard you say earlier were all the conditions, like all the wildlife studies and everything.
Yeah,
Everything's been met.
I said all of the baseline studies. So there were a handful that were required to do in 2024, and we've completed all of those studies.
Okay, so all the conditions have yet to be met.
We are yet to have met all of the conditions.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not what I thought I heard earlier.
Okay, apologies if I miscommunicated.
Good. Couple other things. In the decommissioning bond that's meant for 5 years' time, what happens if the project is sold 3 years from now? What happens to the decommissioning bond then? Is it part of the DA that it goes with the property, and therefore anybody who purchases the site would have to follow the same rules, or is that a negotiable factor?
It would go with the project. So if the project was sold, all of the conditions, all of the municipal development agreement, all of the EA, everything goes with the project.
So those same conditions. So
Yes.
if somebody buys it in 3 years' time, they'd have 2 years to.
They have to buy all the conditions as
They
well.
have to buy all.
They have to accept all the conditions. Yeah.
Okay. The other question I had was imaging. Last time you offered imaging to residents with the new site plan and bigger turbines, is that still available?
I believe, how many have we done? So, new ones? So,
Points have just been updated, the new.
yeah, we're just updating. Yes, we have 5 from public locations that we've updated. That we
Public and private.
public and private. Do you want to speak to this? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll speak, but Andrew, feel free to, Andrew was involved.
I asked that because in your map,
Mhm.
sitting back here, it's very difficult to see the locations of the turbines.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I was just trying to say, well, from this side of the road or that side of the road or from this side of the road, what's that going to look like?
And so what we've tried to do is to take 5 locations from around the, project site. So some from across the lake, kind of looking at the project from that side, some from the hamlet, and provide an overview of what the changes will do from a visual perspective. And we can certainly make those available. There are some that are on private land or taken from private land. So we would need to get the consent of the property owner to do that, but we can certainly make those available to the public and include them as part of the package as well.
Well, I knew originally you took some from my property.
Correct.
I was just wondering if
We have revised ones from your property.
can you share
So,
those?
Yeah, we can certainly. So long as you're happy for those to be shared publicly as well, because
No problem.
we'll be able to compare like previous ones with
Yeah.
with current ones. So yep.
Okay, good.
To you first, Seamus.
Yep, thank you for that. The other question is, I assume that in all this, you've done a geology study?
Do you wanna-
We've done geotechnical studies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you found uranium deposits in those hills?
That's a good question.
Je-
Or Jeff.
Jeff,
That's one day.
Oh, actually,
Rare minerals?
I think I'm going to call point of order on that one because it doesn't pertain to this development agreement and therefore we can't discuss it within this meeting. It is certainly something you can request and speak about privately afterwards, but just in this public session, the
Well,
questions are.
construction of a windmill project and blasting and disruption of the earth should definitely speak to the development agreement and the impact on the residents and the water courses in the area.
Acting Director Fugier, I'm going to look to you. I don't know if you feel that this pertains to the development agreement.
Thank you, Chair. It's a great question. I'll defer back to the applicants on, that is in terms of the environmental assessment that is done between them and the province. So I'm not sure if that's something that has been addressed through the AA process or through a geotechnical study, but it's not something that would be sort of in the municipality's jurisdiction to comment on.
Protection of the residents is not within the jurisdiction of the municipality.
So the environmental study, what's within the jurisdiction of the municipality, is that the environmental assessment requirements have been met by the province.
I
So
understand that, but safeguarding of the residents of West Hants should be within the purview of the municipality.
Does that come down to the water testing?
And that comes down, you're prepared to do water testing, and I would like to do, could you do water testing on all the lakes in the area besides just Little Armstrong? I mean, you have water courses that run into Swicker Lake and other lakes there too. So if you're prepared to do one, could you do others? But I mean, this whole question with, looking at uranium in Millet Brook, which is in Vaughan's. I know that the mountain there is full of other minerals. I just asked the question is, what did that say? And if you start blasting, what's the impact?
Yeah. So I guess first I guess if I'm speaking about uranium,
if it pertains to the blasting, then we can circle around that. But as far as uranium deposits in Millet Brook, we can't touch on that
Of
topic
course.
at this particular meeting.
Okay.
I wasn't talking about Millet Brook. I was talking about.
No, I know. And I
Yeah.
think that was part of the confusion. Okay. So as part of the desktop review for the environmental assessments, we looked at provincially available mapping for risk to arsenic and uranium. And as I'm sure everyone in here is aware, we are in a high risk zone for both of those. As part of the geotechnical investigation that we conducted last year, I'm not sure if we tested samples for either of those, unless that's what you're showing me.
That's what I'm showing you. So within the geotechnical campaign that we did, none of those presents were found in any of those trails. Not to say that that area doesn't have it, but we didn't, and that's on our FAQ page.
So just
We're doing additional geotech this year, at the end of this year, and if we tested before, we will test again.
yeah. So I guess just repeating that into the mic, testing was done during geotech and no arsenic or high levels of arsenic or uranium were identified. And I also know that we tested for sulfide bearing material, which could cause acid, ARD acid rock drainage. And the samples for that came back lower than the threshold. So there's no risk based on the geotechnical for ARD.
Okay.
And then I know I mentioned this already, but just to reiterate, any wells within 800 meters will have to be tested prior to blasting. And it's explicit in the condition that we also test for uranium and arsenic, which isn't like a typical language in approvals. So the EA branch has requested specific testing for those two within the samples prior to blasting.
Okay.
Pre and post.
If post blast monitoring is required, we would be testing for that to compare it to, yeah.
Okay. So can I get confirmation that you're willing to test the waters in other lakes besides Armstrong?
I'd like to consult with our environmental consultant.
Because water
that's okay,
courses run
and-
down that hill from both
Yep.
sides.
I'd like to just, Strum undertook all the environmental studies on this, and I would like to request talk with them and see if we could put a program together, a little program, and we can get back in touch with you what that would look like. But I don't want to make commitments that I can't keep tonight, and
Okay.
I will commit to working with Jeff, and next week we'll call Strum, we'll call a meeting. And what's the circumference? What area is it? Do you have something in mind specifically?
Well, I'm just
Like
looking at the water courses
Yeah.
that run down into you can see the lakes there.
Like within the footprint of our project?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
within,
the water runs
Yeah.
down both sides, and as they've said, there's lots of underground water courses.
Yeah.
And so, I know they run into Squicker Lake. I know it runs, which then feeds into Mockingjay, which feeds in the fall. So if you test it Squicker, but then you also get the lakes on the other side of the hill.
okay,
And there will be testing, like, as mentioned, to the water courses within the site. So those water courses, as you alluded to, do drain into or from these bigger systems too. So anyways, we'll get back to you on like a commitment to.
do we have your contact information?
Yeah.
Oh, Andrew,
have
yeah, okay, perfect.
I have other questions, but I think I'll stop for now and hand it over to other people who might want to speak.
Yeah, and you can always reach out to us.
Yeah.
We're here,
Can you leave your
and
contact information? 'Cause I don't have it.
yeah,
And can you
absolutely.
provide larger maps of that?
100%. So these will be available for download. We could probably circulate them to our mailing list, and they'll be on, I believe, the county website, and then you can zoom in on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just make sure that we post these maps to we'll put them out too. Thank you. It's okay. And yeah.
Any other comments, questions?
Hi there.
Hello.
My name is Amanda. I live in Hants West. I have a few questions. I'm going to apologize in advance if I ask something that's already been answered. Having some short-term memory loss issues. I'm curious about the DA. So under this DA, is the only resource development permitted wind power generation?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just want to state that we do not develop mines. We've heard that before, and that question has been asked. The agreement, our only plan is to develop 11 wind turbines, a substation, a transmission line to connect to the grid.
Thank you. Spoke about transparency, I believe, within the body of the conversation. So if people wanted to know who those 10 CLC members are, where would they go to find that information? Assumably it's published. Are the meetings recorded? And are the minutes of the meetings available to the community?
So to the first point on names being made public, they have not been made public yet because we haven't got consent from the members, as we've just held our first meeting last week and we didn't have all the members present. So one of the first steps is through the CLC to establish the terms of reference and to get everyone's consent that they're happy with their names and contact information, whether it be phone or email, being made public. And that'll certainly be something that is done. So in some municipalities, we've done it through the paper, and others we've posted it on our website. But the names will be made public once the committee has been fully established. And that's the same thing with meeting minutes being circulated following the meeting and being made public. Like everyone has had a CLC established for our terminal in Point Tupper since 2023. And all those meetings and names of the representatives are public, as well as the terms of reference.
So where would people go to find that information?
So currently it's not available because the group is just in the process of being established, but there is a Bear Lake wind website where the information will be posted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As well as all project documents. So this document will be made available on our website. Our previous public information meeting presentation is available on our website, as well as all of our open house documents.
Okay. And how do you bring, realizing that you've had a meeting, but the committee's not fully in place? How does that work if the committee's not fully in place? How do you bring everybody up to speed on what's happened? Are the meetings recorded so they can watch them and capture everything? Or do they just sort of get a briefing?
They get meeting minutes. So we haven't recorded the meetings, but they will be provided with meeting minutes.
And then the minutes will be on the website as well.
Will be posted.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Would it be fair to say that under the new MIPS and the new DA that the project has become a little more economical construction?
No.
No, it's become more expensive to construct?
We're just tightening up our construction pricing now we're going out to tender with engineering, procurement, and construction contractors. The smaller turbine, a turbine is usually X dollars per megawatt. So we're using bigger turbines, which are more expensive, but we had more turbines
Previously.
Yeah, that was so.
More turbines, more roads.
We obviously, it's one of my main jobs is to weigh, Jeff comes to me with environmental issues, Mark comes with social concerns. I also have to look at the economics and weigh everything. And what we've done here is we've had to put the environment and the community first because we want to move forward with this project. And I think one of the most important points is during the removal of, or, moving those choosing which turbines we could put into the alternate positions. We did, like I said earlier, make the selection based on community engagement, what we've heard, environmental factors. But we, had to leave some of the highest producing turbines in because that's how, we need to generate electricity. T1, for example, is on Crown land, and a lot of the team wanted to remove. I couldn't economically remove turbine 1. It is the best producer on the entire site. And removing that would have a big impact on the economics. So we did remove some good wind producing turbines, but I couldn't remove kind of the top 2 producers.
Okay. With regards to the stormwater management criteria, is that determined after the land is cleared? or before the land is cleared? Because that may impact.
That's a great question.
Speak to that. Yeah, the
Okay.
the stormwater management plan that's required as part of the EA approval to the province is required prior to commencement, so prior to tree clearing.
Prior to tree clearing.
Yeah.
And the language. And then in addition to that, the language that's determined as part of the development agreement is also prior to
Prior to any
commencement.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we're doing is an additional commitment on top of the environmental assessment requirements is to I would say improve the language of the form of development agreement with West Hants to, for a commitment for our engineers, our owner's engineers, and West Hants Public Works Department to work together so when we design, we design the slopes, when we do all the civil design, that we include improvements to stormwater management. We not just leave them, at the same levels. So that's kind of just the additional commitment that we've made tonight that we'll be putting into the development agreement.
And then the bond posting. So if the project were to change hands, the time frame shall stay the same. It'll still be 5 years from the time of commencement. It won't be 5 years from the time it potentially changes hands.
Yeah,
Correct?
and that's a requirement. We have that requirement in 3 places: Crown Land, West Hants, and our private landowner. Can't get out of that one.
And then the contribution values, like in 2025 values, realizing that you can't predict them for every single year without seeing some information. What do you expect to come to West Hants? So both the municipality and the community, as far as proximity payments, community payments.
So 2-part response from me on that. So in terms of to West Hants as a municipality, it'll be based on the exact nameplate capacity that's built out in West Hants. So that's currently, so it's 7 turbines at 8 megawatts. So it's 56 megawatts in West Hants. And then that's multiplied by a provincially legislated amount per megawatt. So just off the top of my head, in 2026, that number is $8,450, which equates to just over $450,000 paid into West Hants. And then in the same way that the payments through to the municipalities is based on a megawatt, so nameplate capacity, the payments to the local communities will be in that form as well. So we are, that's $90,000 voluntary contribution into the communities.
Okay.
What's that? Annually. Yeah. For the life of the project. And those commitments as well are with the wind project. So that will be a commitment that Bear Lake Wind makes with the municipality. So irrespective of who the actual owners are, that commitment will be paid out. Will carry forward in the same way.
Okay, so there would be a contribution to private landowners for turbine location, I assume.
Yeah. So in terms of then the payments through to private landowners in the Crown, there's additional payments for that as well. That's in addition to what's paid to the municipality and that what's paid to the community benefits fund.
Okay. And ongoing local employment, does local mean Nova Scotians or local to the community, or it's just sort of a term as in local employment? There'll be employment generated in the local economy per se.
We'll make every effort to offer, because we have projects across Nova Scotia. So when we're talking about Bear Lake, we will have local job fairs, as close to Bear Lake as possible as our project, and try to source as much part-time, full-time employment from the surrounding area. And all the spin-off opportunities, snow removal contracts, fencing contracts, all the contracts we want to be able to provide to local. It's cheaper for us in the long run. It is better community relations. And so there has to be, some positions require qualifications, but that's, I think, one of the first ideas we had is local sponsorships. right? So there will be at least 6 3 wind technician management position, and then 2 kind of site, for the balance of plant, the electrical and roads maintenance and everything else. So there'll be 6 technician jobs and manager and admin kind of working on this site. And we've written, like from a construction perspective, we've actually written it in as a condition it'll be a condition to our agreement with who we award our contract to, is that they'll have to do everything they can and prove to us that they've done everything they can to hire as much local as possible. And that's Bear Lake is West Hants, Vaughns, surrounding area. In Colchester, that means Colchester and beyond.
Okay. And I guess just a point, the access road for emergencies, it sounds like it's on your honor, but I did want to point out that West Hants does have a gate elsewhere for emergency access that is gated. And Public Works has assured us that they can get there in any emergency with a key and unlock it. So then there's, if on your honor has potential to be an issue for surrounding landowners, that it is something that's permitted here in this municipality. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Might as well say, you're doing a good job.
My name is Ken Garber, and I have a question for each one of you Everwind people. Has any of you ever lost a home or a building due to fire?
I have not.
No, I have not.
Have you?
No.
I have 2 homes and a barn.
Ouch.
What are you going to do about a fire suppression system and help our fire hall with that? We live in the woods.
Yeah, that's
It goes poof, gone. If it goes, that'll be 3 for me. Not a happy feeling.
Yeah, no, understood. So we have fire detection. And we have talked about this issue quite a bit. We've heard you've consulted with the fire chief.
Yes.
Do you want to come up and, because you're the one that has been doing that engagement?
So we have spoken with the West Hants Fire Chief on this topic at length, kind of explain the systems in the turbine, how the turbines operate, how they detect fires, the likelihood of a fire happening on site. And based on that information and kind of the industry standard, they felt comfortable not having fire suppression in the turbines. It's not a Nova Scotia requirement at this time. One of the asks that the chief had was if there was a possibility to have egress to that part of the project area, the north part, kind of, I guess, west of Armstrong Lake West Road, which is exactly where our egress point is. Prior to that, they didn't have access to that area. So if there was a forest fire in that area, they'd only be able to come up Armstrong Lake West. So this actually helps facilitate getting emergency vehicles into the area. We're going to improve the infrastructure of the site roads as well. Likelihood of a turbine fire is very low, not impossible for it to happen.
Talk about our turbine, the permanent magnetic.
So yeah, I would say like likelihood of turbine fires are very low. The common fire for a turbine is a lightning strike, which could happen on any infrastructure anywheres. One of the things that we aim to do is to facilitate kind of the erection and delivery of turbines. We grab the area around the footprint of the turbine. So in the case of a blade fire or a lightning strike on a blade, a suppression system within the turbine wouldn't extinguish that. What we have allowed is a drop zone for materials to fall to the ground, a perimeter for emergency response to set up to extinguish that so it doesn't get into the wooded area. Within the turbine, we do have detection systems, PLC programs, SCADA, so we can see temperature monitoring in real time. If a temperature gets too high from an electrical component, that turbine will send out an alarm. It goes to the control center. That turbine is shut down automatically technicians would respond. So that's kind of a leading indicator if a component's failing. There's another number of other fail safes in place, not to say that it's impossible for a fire to happen, but they're looking to utilize, or they have utilized more flame retardant materials in the building of the nacelle. So normally if a fire takes place in the nacelle, that fire is contained within the nacelle. Again, debris will drop to the ground in a fire. It tends to burn itself out. You can't get water up to the nacelle to put out a fire. EHS doesn't respond up turbines, but they can set up a barricade around the base of the turbine and maintain that so it doesn't grow outside of that area. But I just want to emphasize turbine fires are quite rare. Not to say they haven't happened here in Nova Scotia, but on a per capita basis for the number of turbines administered around the world, there's a very low likelihood.
Well, I've had 3, no more.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
understand.
Hello, my name is Beth Brown Carver. Don't hold that against me. I live in Vaughan. Welcome. Thank you for coming tonight. Through you, Chair, I have a question for Acting Director Boucher, please. I'm a little confused because when I came in tonight, I thought I was hearing a DA. Okay. And then several times throughout that, we've heard that the DA is still being worked upon. But when you started your talk, you said we had to have our comments in writing by June the 4th, which is 14 days. How am I ever going to see a written DA so I know what I can comment on? Sorry if that sounds nasty. I really don't mean it to. I just want to know.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So just some clarification. So the comment period is just for this public information meeting. So we're just seeking comments on the information that we presented tonight. We are still working through the drafting of the DA, and that goes through an additional public process. So
Okay.
towards the end of the approval process, there's something called a public hearing, which is held at council. So you'll be able to see the draft DA prior to that, and then
Okay.
you can come and speak and ask questions
Okay.
at that time.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no
I was
problem.
just a little confused. Okay. And your meeting on Sunday at the fire hall, is that just for residents of the hamlet, or is anyone in the community welcome to attend that meeting?
So, do you want to speak to that?
For residents of Chatham Hamlet. You know, the Everton presentation is not actually part of the meeting. Part of the meeting is to talk to our community members about the road work we've been doing, how winter services have been. So it has nothing to do with Everton. So the meeting on Sunday at the fire hall is really a community meeting for Chatham Hamlet.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, so I will just add to that, and just in terms of why Everwind is there. Everwind has responded to a request to come and provide a project update in a similar way that we would with other interested community groups or bodies, and provide an update on where we're at with the project, the changes that we've presented tonight, and then just an opportunity for that group to answer questions. But we'd certainly, if there's another group that wants to have an update from the team, we can certainly make ourselves available for that as well.
I'll just get you to click your microphone there, Seamus, please. Thank
There we
you.
go. Seamus Marriott, Upper Vaughan. A couple of just quick follow-up questions, and this might be for a level of comfort for another resident. In talking about fire suppression, I know you talked to the local fire chief. I don't know, and I don't mean to disparage anybody, but I don't know how much experience he has with large structure fires in the woods. And it would be interesting to maybe, as a level of comfort and reassurance, to get somebody who perhaps has more expertise and experience to sign off on your fire suppression plan. Because as I said, I'm not even sure how much training the local fire brigades have had in 700-foot structure fires in the woods.
Just writing down. Follow-up notes.
So, I mean, we have a firefighter in our midst, but I won't ask that person to actually comment on how much training they've had in 700-foot structures, fires in the woods. The other thing is, just to follow up, you mentioned core samples. Can I ask you how deep your core samples went?
We'll follow up, yeah. Pretty deep.
Like 3 meters, 5 meters, 2 feet?
In the, oh, yeah, we'll get back to
Okay, I appreciate that.
you. You know, I have a laptop here.
I just thought you might know off the top of your head.
Yeah, sorry. We'll send you an email.
All right. Or just share it out on your public site or something. Yeah.
We
Just,
won't do our geotechnical studies. We're not, can't share geotechnical studies.
yeah, but you can tell us how deep your core samples went. And I'd appreciate an email too. Thank you. All right.
Ron? Do this first and then me. Okay.
Is it on?
Lights, it's on.
Okay, hello, I'm Karen Wallace. I'm from Chalet Hamlet. Hello to a bunch of whole new faces and returning ones. I haven't been here for a while. So nice to see you guys again. So I got a few points. So you've changed your number of turbines. So I guess that is a bit of a benefit for us, but it's really greater savings for everyone, isn't it? Financially, just saying.
I think I commented on this earlier, not really. So the other turbines, we had more of them, but they were like a smaller generating capacity, where these are a larger generating capacity and there's less of them. 4.5 meters, 4.5 meters taller. So there's no real economic benefit, I would say.
Oh.
The larger turbines.
Expensive ones as opposed to 7 cheaper ones.
I wouldn't call them cheap,
Well,
but yeah, less expensive, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So these changes were, and I think I said this, I'll repeat it because I think it's very important. These changes were driven primarily based on the concerns that we've heard. So,
what
I would say the economics are
higher.
I would say the economics are flat compared to the previous proposal, because it's very important to us. We want to move forward with this project, and we want to work with the community and receive a development permit for this project.
If and you're blowing up and you discover uranium, do the frackers come in or what happens then?
So that question isn't something that everyone can answer. That's in provincial jurisdiction. So unfortunately, they won't be able to provide a response to that this
So
evening.
when you put these turbines on, you had the land rights as well, land and mineral rights that go with it?
Could we commit to providing a response outside of this forum, a written response outside of this forum?
Yeah.
So that's what we'll do on the uranium issue if we encounter. So Andrew, this is a good one to note down. So we will commit to providing a written response outside of this process.
ADLS, the Aircraft Detection Lighting System. I never really fully read the article, but I've heard now how windmills are interfering with aircraft radar. And when you mentioned that tonight, I was wondering, well, is that the connection?
So we have to do studies, EMI studies. Wind turbines do have, there's a whole bunch of different radar studies, national defense, weather stations, point-to-point telecommunication links. So we have to do multiple studies to determine Sometimes a wind turbine within a zone is a problem. Sometimes it's just within a direct link. So we have done multiple studies through the permitting process and have found, I'm looking at Jeff because Jeff's our permitting director. I do not believe, I have not heard of any.
EMI was reissued now with the new layout.
So we have, approval with the new layout, with the new turbine on all of our kind of EMI, those interference studies.
So you conduct your own studies and make your decisions based on your results.
We use consultants, third-party consultants
That you
to
pay
do it.
for?
And then we have to, yes, but then we have to send it to various federal and provincial departments for approval. And the ADLS does use what the ADLS will look like is, I believe, on Bear Lake, there'll be about a 25-meter tower. And it could vary, don't quote me on this, depending on which vendor we use. We're just getting fresh quotes in now. It would be about a 25-meter tower that would have a radar, one at the Bear Lake project, and the radar would manage the lighting system. So there'd be an additional tower somewhere on the site that we have not gotten footprint approval for it yet because we need Transport Canada to approve it and tell us where we need to put it.
Okay.
So when we go through the lighting, Transport Canada does all the lighting. When we go through that approval, then we'll likely have to go back to the EA branch and, do a field study on where we need it located.
To the next one, West Hants is sort of guaranteed 450,000 a year. Is that correct? That's from your.
That is correct. Yeah, indexed up over the
Indexed
life
up.
of the project.
And the 90,000, is that the old 70,000 figure, that $1,000 per household?
No, the commitment has always been $1,000 a megawatt in terms of community benefit funds. How that's broken down previously was 70,000 in proximity payments, 20,000 in vibrancy funds. From our perspective, our commitment is the 90,000. How that's broken down, we're open to discussions with the community through the CLC, through conversations with local residents. We're open to discussions through representatives of planning, through feedback from councillors on what the most appropriate breakdown of that 90,000. But our commitment is the pot of 90,000 annually for the life of the project, paid out in benefit funds. And again, those are voluntary payments from the project out to the community. How they're broken down, we're very open to feedback because I know there was a lot of questions around the proximity payments, the distance, the amount per resident. So our commitment is the entire amount, 90,000. Previously, it was broken down by 20,000 in vibrancy fund and 70,000 in proximity payments and an additional 50,000 in bursaries. So the bursaries will remain the same in scholarships, and the 90,000s will remain the same. We're open to negotiate and really receive feedback on the allocation thereof of that 90,000.
So if we're making 450,000, how much is projected for everyone to make in the same time frame annually in the next 25 years?
So our margins aren't as big as you think. I'm working very hard to make a profitable project. Obviously, I can't tell, we have a financial model and we're working on it, and, we will proceed with the project. We're a private company and private companies don't disclose kind of their,
Funded by taxpayers' dollars.
this is a private investment. It's a private investment.
The Canadian government federally and
So the
provincially have given to you.
ITC is available for, so that is, I guess, kind of, we will apply for the ITC.
What's ITC?
That is
An
the
investment
investment
tax
tax credit.
So you
So-
have yet to apply.
No,
for
no, no,
that.
no. It's all been private investment
Well,
funds.
What did you do with the Canadian dollars
The
that
Ca-
Trudeau gave you, the millions? And the money that Houston gave you?
So yeah, Brendan's our vice president of power and has been at Everwin from day one and can speak.
Just Chair.
Just so a point of order, as far as the federal government funds go, we can't discuss those at this table if you received or did not receive those funds. If you'd like to make a comment back to the question, you're are more than able to do so, just not specific to other levels of government.
Yeah,
I would-
there isn't much to say to that then if we can't disclose whether or not there were funds from federal government or provincial.
You can disclose if there were funds, you just can't directly respond to the comment that was made about the particular prime minister that was involved at the time of the government.
So Bear Lake Wind Project has not received any federal funding. And the federal dollars that Everwind has borrowed from Export Development Canada is a fully repayable loan with interest. So there are no grants received for the terminal and $0 from the federal or provincial government directly for Bear Lake.
So it's all private interest.
100%.
You said jobs, 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 and then it sort of went to jobs Nova Scotia wide. And then you said our benefits will be hotels and restaurants, and that tells me those have come from away jobs. So can you give us an idea of how many jobs, how many people you're going to employ and what it
We'll go back to a slide here. So
That's the same as it was before.
during a construction project, it depends on the phase on how many jobs will be here. We'll hire an EPC contractor who will have generally three partners, or there's three streams. There's civil, they do all the roads, the foundations. There's electrical, they do the substations, the collection lines. And then you have the turbine erection specialists. They're the ones that operate the cranes and lift the turbines into place and do the completion of the turbines. So we're looking for Everwind might be a big name, but we're a small team. And so we're looking to hire from this, I'm talking construction, from an EPC contractor who can fully, EPC means engineering, procurement, and construction.
There any diversity initiatives within that, like 50-50 male, female, or?
They'll have their own. We know who will be bidding on our projects, and they all are very reputable companies that have their own programs in place. And so we will, I lost my train of thought, sorry. So whatever company we select based on multiple criteria, not just, lowest price, experience, local knowledge, they will have a core group generally, and then generally hire as much locally. A couple of those companies are already Nova Scotian and, you would know their names. Other companies, maybe you wouldn't know their names because they're specific to renewables. So we have put a condition in the RFP, request for proposal package, that as part of our agreement with them, our contract, that they will have to hire locally where possible, train locally. We have, an MOU with First Nations that they will have to consider. They have to consider our community benefits agreement, our development agreement, and all of the terms are contractually binding. So they will price that in, their job fairs, hire locally, training folks. So there's a commitment to, but if
7 part-time jobs.
so during operations, yes, there's less jobs. They're very qualified, well-paying jobs. And if there's no local talent, that's why initiated the sponsorship program. So locals, can apply for those. And I don't know how they'll be selected. Mark can speak to that. But we can train, we'll provide the funds to train local young adults, older adults, whoever has the interest in Nova Scotia Community College's new wind turbine technician program, and or they can utilize that scholarship for, any other part, anything that would qualify them to work on one of the wind farm sites, either in construction and or in operations.
So, well, I don't know, what, 20 students per program each year, 20, 30 students? Will all those people ever get jobs with you as wind technicians? It seems like broken hearts to me.
No, there'll certainly be a high demand for wind technicians in the province. So we have, as part of our phase one, 4 projects that we're working on. The province is currently constructing 5 projects for the grid, one of which is here locally. And the province just procured through the Green Choice Program another 6 wind projects. So Nova Scotia's plan of moving to 80% renewables, primarily wind, by 2030 will mean that there's a significant wind industry in Nova Scotia that will support hundreds of jobs throughout the province. And this area, as has been mentioned many times, has a number of wind sites, and there will be, with the operation jobs, they will turn up to work on site every day. So those jobs are people that live locally to arrive to work every day, and they are well-paying jobs that support families, in the community.
I think I just have one, oh no, maybe, no, one more point. Quote from you, Everwind is committed to ongoing communication and transparency. How much money did you spend on Russian oil products?
I'll ask.
So
It's against United Nations sanctions, and you never hear anything about it in the news. And to me, it's all very Trumpian that you're not standing accountable for doing so.
So
And if I can't trust you on that, I don't want to trust you signing any other agreement.
I'm just going to stop you there because
you go.
that doesn't pertain to the development agreement that we're here discussing. You are more than welcome to have outside conversations. It's just at this
Thank you very
meeting.
much, you rock.
We do have a member of the public online who would like to ask a question. He left. Okay. We no longer have a member of the public online. Is there anybody else who would like to comment or pose questions?
Hi. Amanda from West Hants. Fire suppression systems, just kind of circling back. Was the request, I guess, as part of the new DA preparation, was the request to the West Hants, was it the fire coordinator or the fire chief? Because we don't really have a West Hants fire chief. We have a West Hants fire coordinator.
So there was a previous West Hants chief. They stepped down or left the position, and now there's an acting chief. At least that was my understanding.
An acting chief for the municipality?
For Windsor.
Oh, it was the Windsor fire chief. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Because they don't have wildfire suppression training or anything like that, really. In Windsor that I'm aware of. So was that request resubmitted then? It sounds like it went to a second person. Like it went to somebody and then just somebody else.
So I'm just going to direct that, Amanda, to Acting Director Fougier.
Okay, sorry, I'm not really sure.
Yes. So with this new application, I have been in contact with the fire chief to have him comment on the application and the provisions that will be going into the DA. So I'm working back and forth with him.
Okay. Has the Southwest Fire Chief been contacted, seeing as how that would be sort of their jurisdiction? It would be the main.
No, I've been in contact with the Windsor West Hants fire chief, and that being his jurisdiction.
Okay. Are there plans to install dry hydrants in proximity to the project? Just realizing that it's a rural locale and, while I realize there's a lot of water bodies in the winter, you're going to be dealing with frozen surfaces and a dry hydrant, like I can install a dry hydrant. I mean, farmers do it all the time. I'm just curious, like they're under 10 grand usually, how that, if there's a thought there just to add water closer to the project even?
So that was discussed with the Chester fire chief.
Okay.
And their preference is to not have a dry hydrant. It requires maintenance and upkeep. And they feel that having access to a lake where they can pump from was more beneficial. That way they knew that the water source was there when they went there.
Really? Okay.
Identified locations, like suitable locations.
Yes.
Like known locations. Adjacent site.
I'm sorry, I might have blanked out there for a second.
No problem. So that was a question that was asked to the Chester fire chief.
Okay.
And their preference is to just use a pump. They know it's a reliable system, and we would still be open to looking at exploring a dry hydrant if that is something that the chief in the local area thinks would be a benefit.
Okay. Yeah, I thought there was concerns with frozen surfaces and cold temperatures. You have to break through the ice, but I can see why maintenance would be a concern. Okay. And was there a water body? You might have said it and I might have missed it or forgot, but was there a water body identified?
Through you?
Sorry, a water body identified where?
Like
Exactly.
for fire suppression, in proximity to the project?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't think that was part of any review from our fire chief.
Okay, thank you.
Environmental assessment. So you said you got all your environmental assessment? Did you got the mainland moose?
We have environmental assessment approval and we completed our baseline studies for mainland moose.
But you haven't received an approval yet for that.
I don't know if I follow your question. We have an EA approval, which required an additional year of baseline monitoring for mainland moose, which we have completed. And we're required to develop a mainland moose monitoring program and monitor moose for 2 years during operations. So we've developed that plan, but that won't commence until the first year that turbines are spinning.
And if the moose run away, what happens then? What's the backup plan? Like oh my goodness, we're hurting the moose, so we got to take.
Can I talk about my personal experience? I've brought these into operations, and generally I'm talking as Rebecca Crump's personal experience. Generally construction is just disruptive. So I believe there are commitments, and that's generally when we see kind of wildlife move on. I have seen large fauna within a construction site because it's so distributed, right? There's a lot of it. When you look at a map, it looks like, a lot of dots and a lot of roads, but if you're out there, it's really, really distributed. There's kind of, can we measure, how the distance between turbines can be a kilometer. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of area for passage that is untouched. But generally, during blasting, animals go away. But in my experience and seeing operational projects for, 18 years, 17 years, they come back. It's a temporary disturbance. I've seen, I have photos on my phone on construction sites. Obviously, it's a different jurisdiction. So, and moose aren't, under, a species of concern in that jurisdiction. I have seen them walk through active construction sites. Deer, antelope. That's my personal experience, just
So you're not
developing.
so it doesn't really matter anyway.
Well, we do have to, we have many commitments. So Jeff can talk to our commitments. I just talked about my personal experience.
And
Yeah.
and so like as outlined in the EA, like they're based on the project, there will be impacts to mainland moose habitat. We've minimized that to the extent possible, especially with these changes by using existing infrastructure and existing roads where possible, siting turbines in disturbed habitat. As Rebecca mentioned, the greatest impact for moose would be during construction where they might exhibit avoidance behavior, and we're required to monitor and implement our wildlife management plan to try to minimize interactions with moose to the extent possible.
For example, like if we encounter moose, our environmental monitor stops all activities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so
All
that's
activities are stopped.
that's in our wildlife management plan there. If we identify a moose, what do we do? Who do we notify? It's all laid out in there. So there's additional commitments that we've made in these management and monitoring plans that go beyond what you would have seen in the EA.
And is there a worldwide demand for green hydrogen?
Half our team is in Rotterdam right now.
Because they want it. Uniper wants it.
Not just
and they're getting
Uniper,
it
there's,
from us.
yeah. I don't know if this is, yeah.
Yeah,
I understand that that's the intended production of your project. However, that doesn't pertain to the development agreement.
You know
that we're
what? This is a
discussing
grid
this
connected
evening.
project. This electricity is going into the grid. You know,
We're not going to benefit from it though, my point.
I think that's worth, if
we
they're
put
that
up
they're
our
not going to
own
benefit
grid,
from this wind
benefit
project.
more.
Could you, Brendan VP Powers, I think he's the best to respond to this.
Sure, I'll try to keep it quick because it isn't directly related to the development agreement, but 100% of our energy will be delivered through the Nova Scotia grid to our production facility. What that means is that there's more demand for electricity on the grid through our production, similar to Port Hawkesbury Paper producing paper that is then exported, or Michelin producing tires that are then exported. We're producing ammonia, which will be exported and used to, it could be for fertilizer, for chemicals, or other demand that's already out there today for those products. Specific to the grid, that means that there's more renewable electricity in Nova Scotia being used in Nova Scotia to create products that are driving economic growth for the province. So there are benefits through that. In addition, we will be paying for all of the costs incurred by Nova Scotia Power to provide that service and making a significant contribution towards Nova Scotia Power's system fixed costs. So every dollar that we pay to Nova Scotia Power is a dollar they do not collect from other customers. And we will be going to the Nova Scotia Energy Board, so the new utility and review board, with a tariff. And that will specify all of the arrangements between us and Nova Scotia Power, including the payments that we'll make. So we expect that to be in the range of around $10 million a year. And so that's benefit to all electricity users in the province.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any additional comments?
Okay. My name's Chris. I can probably say that this is probably not going to be avoided because everyone wants green. I just wish green would stay here instead of a private company making money off of it, sending it somewhere else in the world. Nova Scotia relies on Alberta, which wants to leave Canada. I can't friggin' blame them because it sucks. We need something to stay here. If you guys want to make something, sure, go right ahead. But, and at least try to buy off the people a little better. This little bursaries and stuff that you're doing is a drop in the bucket. It's a penny for you guys. It's ridiculous. It's a slap in the face to all of us. We're surrounded by windmills. We have beautiful waterways. We're all downhill from all the windmills. And the ground's loaded with uranium. It's been dug up. It's not down there very far. So, hell, if I was with you guys, I would have offered the people, here's a extra windmill. Here's some free power. Bribe the people. It sucks.
We feel so tossed aside. It's unreal. Yes, you're giving West Hants all kinds of money. That's great. Property tax last year was $26 million. Our roads are full of friggin' holes. Windsor has beautiful pot plants on their sidewalks. I don't benefit from that at all. Thousands of dollars sitting there. It's great. It's beautiful. But we will not benefit from nothing out there. Except a access road for the hamlet, which is full of potholes anyways. It's put a nice park in for the kids. We have all kinds of kids out there. Put in a beautiful park, but don't stick it in town. I'm not going to drive 20 minutes to town. I barely want to go to town for my groceries. Because it's a disgrace. So
I think we've heard this from a couple landowners, is how do we keep, this pot of money, right, that we've set aside for either, there's a pot that we had proposed proximity payments and then a vibrancy component of it.
yeah, which
And
are
I
taxed on.
I think it's the CLC, because we heard this. I sat down at a kitchen table a month ago and heard this, is how do we keep that money in the local area?
We don't get none of it,
So, but
it's not enough. We have
you know,
purchased that or
that'll
closing
be
down
Mhm.
everything
Yeah.
because nothing is around anymore. Everybody's leaving. It's
Mhm.
cottage country for the people that can afford the land.
Mhm.
Nobody can anymore.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and that goes to, I guess, because it's a really good point that's been made by others, and that's why our commitment is that 90,000. Whether or not you feel like that's
It's
a valid
probably
or
not your
not,
decision, so I'm sorry.
or not, yeah.
So
But what we've seen with other projects is where that money is allocated collectively, that there's opportunities to use that 90,000 and potentially advocate for funds from at a municipal level, at a provincial level, federal, whatever it may be. But because it's reoccurring funding annually, that it can go further to building like a community park, for example, than it can if it's distributed up into smaller payments out to individuals. And that's something that I feel anyway through conversations that I've
not a
had.
very big fund at all for everyone to not just put up with it, but be surrounded by it. Like, we are supportive for green energy if it's green and if it stays here and if it's, clean. But my word, like, South Canoe's getting even worse. I'm over 2 kilometers from it, and when the wind's blowing towards my house, I can hear them even at night, and I don't like it. Like, sure, it's not a big noise, but I'll be surrounded by them now. I have a true artesian well. I'm tapped into a spring. Like, I'm terrified that it's going to get poisoned. I've been here 40 years and it's like, it doesn't matter. So, and yeah, they can talk all they want about, I don't know, looking after the land and stuff, but it's a bunch of sham. So anyways, Andrew, can you see me, bud? Likewise.
Any additional comments, questions?
Jason Hart, through you, Chair, to Director Fasheer. Could you remind the folks here what date this application was submitted?
Through your chair, it was submitted on April 28th, 2025.
And could you remind the folks in the audience what date the previous application was pulled?
It was pulled around the same time.
Think that time frame over, folks.
Are there any additional comments, questions?
Sorry, once again, just Seamus Murray, Upper Vaughan, Acting Director Fougier, through you, Chair. You commented that you spoke to the fire chief, and as I said, I just, once again, looking for confirmation and a commitment. I don't know this individual's experience, and I trust that you have sought that out and understand that this person has large structure, forest, integrated structures, experience in fire suppression.
Through you, Chair. How can I answer this?
Yes or no?
It's not my responsibility to understand the fire chief's qualifications. I rely on the fire chief to respond to my inquiries, and we use him as a subject
We have
matter
no
expert.
understanding if this person has the expertise to actually speak on the topic.
Sorry, Chair, I'm not sure I can answer that.
I think you've said enough. Thank you.
One last time, any additional comments or questions? Okay, so seeing none, thank you all for your engagement this evening and for coming in and taking your time. It is appreciated for us to hear from members of the public. And comments or questions on this application will be received by Acting Director Carrie Fougier until noon on June 4th, 2025. Her email is kfougier@westhants.ca or at 902-798-8391, extension 114. And the contact information is also available on the municipal website. Have a good evening.